Today, we're going to take a look at one of the most visible public figures of the last decade, Ivanka Trump. But we're going to look at her through a really specific lens, her own framework for how she deals with immense pressure. It's a strategy she calls finding the signal in the noise.
But first, let me ask you something. Seriously, think about it. How would you handle it if every single part of your life, your childhood, your career, your family, was constantly under a microscope? It's a kind of pressure most of us can't even imagine, and her way of handling it is, well, it's pretty fascinating.
Well, there's her answer, right from the source. It's a philosophy that's all about intense focus, about deliberately tuning out all the distractions to really zero in on what she believes truly matters. So how did she build this mindset? Let's break it down.
Okay, let's dive right in. To really get what she means by the signal, you first have to appreciate the sheer volume of the noise that has surrounded her pretty much her entire life. I mean, the scrutiny started so young. At just 9 years old, her parents' divorce was a massive media circus. Then in her 20s, she becomes a household name on The Apprentice, which was a huge global hit. And by her 30s, boom, she's an advisor in the White House, one of the most intensely watched jobs on the planet.
And this quote right here, this just shows you how personal and, frankly, how aggressive this noise was. This wasn't just some distant story in the news. This was her daily reality as a kid, just trying to leave school.
So how on earth do you filter out that level of noise? Well, for her, it started with a really important lesson from her mother, which she then turned into a pretty powerful tool for herself.
She actually has a name for it, the underestimation advantage. The whole idea is, instead of letting other people's low expectations get you down, you learn to see it as a secret weapon. It becomes a kind of motivation, a fuel.
And this chart here just illustrates that perfectly. The perception might have been that she was unprepared or just kind of phoning it in, but she says the reality was the complete opposite. She'd over-prepare, she'd work twice as hard, and she'd use that gap between what people thought and what she was actually doing to her advantage.
So that whole mindset led her to a really clear philosophy for how to handle direct public attacks. And she explains it with this really striking metaphor about an eagle and some crows.
Okay, so it goes like this. A crow is one of the only birds that's actually bold enough to attack an eagle. It'll land right on the eagle's back and just start pecking away. You can think of the crow as that constant aggressive noise and criticism.
Now here's the key part. The eagle, even though it's way bigger and stronger, doesn't engage. It doesn't fight back. It just refuses to waste its energy playing the crow's game.
So what does it do instead? It's simple, really. The eagle just starts to fly up. It just soars higher and higher, completely changing the terms of the fight. And here's how it ends. By refusing to fight and just elevating its own game, the eagle solves the problem without wasting any energy. The crow literally can't breathe at that altitude, and it just falls away. The lesson here is pretty powerful. Don't fight the noise, just rise above it. So that's the philosophy. But how did this idea of focusing on your own altitude play out when she made the huge decision to enter public service? Well, it meant choosing a brand new signal and accepting the price that came with it. First, let's just talk about that price. To follow the ethics rules, she had to completely shut down her fashion business. And this was a brand that, at its peak, was doing somewhere around $800 million in annual sales. That is a massive personal signal to just give up.
And in its place, she zeroed in on a totally different signal, public policy. This slide just shows you a few of the key initiatives she worked on. For her, this was the trade-off, swapping that commercial signal for a public service one.
Right, so after 4 years in that political world, she faced another huge choice. Was she going to stay in the noise of politics, or was it time to deliberately choose her signal all over again? And this table here really lays out that decision pretty clearly. On one side, you have the noise she decided to leave behind, the politics, the constant public attacks. And on the other, you have the signal she chose instead, focusing on her children and a private family life. And really, it all came down to this. She felt that the price of staying in that life was becoming too high for her children to have to pay. And for her, once she saw it that way, the decision to step away felt clear and simple. And that brings us to our final question, which is really about turning this whole framework back on ourselves. We all deal with a constant barrage of noise, right? Distractions, opinions, expectations, all of it. So take a second and ask yourself, in your own life, what's the signal and what's the noise?